2021 marked 40 years since the Greenham Common women's peace camps protesting against nuclear weapons. POW 2021 is a celebration of this anniversary. And with our Power in Protest Festival taking an in-depth look at the history, present and future of protest. The Greenham Common Women's Peace Camps were established in 1981 to protest the British government's decision to hold nuclear weapons at RAF Greenham Common in Berkshire. Initiated by a Welsh group, Women for Life on Earth, the Peace Camp's protest activities included 36 women chaining themselves to the base fence in 1981. 30,000 women responded to a chain letter and joining hands around the base at the Embrace the Base event in 1982 and in 1983. 70,000 protesters forming a 14-mile human chain from Greenham to Aldermaston, all together, connected. Imagine. Wow. The protest involved only women as they used their identity as mothers acting in the name of their children and future generations. The women were directly against societal expectations of them to have that power in their protest, in refusing to go home. They challenged the traditional notion that a woman's place was in the home. The women's protest activities inspired other peace camps across Europe. We are, I'm sure you can tell, all of us here at a socially distanced, in a socially distanced amazing way, are so excited for this. An exclusive screening of a film made by a young director at the time. It's called Carry Greenham Home. And even more of a treat, we hear from its director for a live Q&A afterwards. Then the evening ends with Rebecca Mordan performing Greenham Women's campfire songs. Settle down, maybe light a candle even, to honour this amazing moment. This is vital documentation of feministic protest history. This is where we really, really learn. Thank you to Rebecca, and everybody that's been part of this. Let's watch this film.
The first part of the project was to archive and interview Greenham women, and it's really interesting seeing that film again now, because quite a lot of the women that we've interviewed are actually women from that film. So it's fascinating seeing people like Sarah Green, who has her baby there, Eileen, who puts the bike lock on the fence. All those people are people that we either have spoken to or talked about in our archive. Our archive is called Greenham Women Everywhere, and it's you can find it online, and it's an amazing sort of collection of what was basically going to be at risk of being culturally forgotten, this enormous movement of thousands and thousands of women, the biggest female-led action since suffrage, really important part of lesbian history, really important part of socialist history, and of course feminist history, and no one younger than 40, younger than me, had heard about it. I was very lucky that I had heard about it because my mum took me, so that's my connection to Greenham. I am very excited to say that I'm joined here by the director of Carry Greenham Home. I can't tell you how excited I am to meet you. Beeban, I'm going to just say your name, but actually you might very well want to correct me, because of course you are Baroness of Angel, Baroness Kidron. Would you like me to be very formal and talk to you as Baroness Kidron? How would you like me to address you?
No, I'd like to start by apologising for being late. That is just so unlike me, and I had a mind bend. So Beeban is fine, and I really do apologise.
Don't worry at all. I think that we've all got to that point in lockdowns now where we're like, what day and what person am I? So it's all it's a blur, isn't it? So I've got, we're going to do about 20 minutes now of Q&A with the wonderful Beeban, which I'm really excited about. Having introduced myself, I'll just quickly introduce her, and I'll just also say that after about 20 minutes of Q&A, we will, so please put your questions in the chat. I'll sing you just 3 Greenham songs as well at the end. And I think the lyrics for those are up on the POW website. So if you want to have a look at them and sing along with me at home, you'd be really, really welcome. So do download those if you fancy it. So Beeban Kidron, what do I say about you? Basically, I mean, she's the chair of the Five Rights Foundation. It's a charity that works with children's rights for young people online. And she's the joint founder of education charity Into Film, who work in state schools with young people between sort of 5 and 19. And she's also, you changed my life, Beeban, not just with Carry Greenham Home, but you also, of course, directed Orange is Not the Only Fruit, which is yeah, I remember watching that at about 17, just going, nothing is the same for me now. So that was amazing. Well done with that. And of course, more recently, and very, very famously, you also directed Bridget Jones' The Edge of Reason, the good Bridget Jones film. So really exciting to see you. And Wikipedia says you are best known for those last 2 things that I just talked about. But actually, of course, closest to my heart is the fact that you made Carry Greenham Home. Can I start off by just asking you what took you to Greenham to make that film in the first place?
Well, I had just arrived at film school. I'd had a very long road to film school, but let's sort of skip over that. And I just arrived, and I think that I thought it was going to be a bit like, you know, Fame. Everybody was going to be wanting to change the world and jumping up on the table, sort of full of excitement and so on. And actually, it wasn't like that at all. There was quite a lot of very sort of commercially minded people trying to work out where the best place was to put a light to make everyone shiny. I was also the only woman in the camera department. I went as a cinematographer, and I mean, it was a very small place, and so there was only, I think, 5 or 6 of us in the camera department. But the then tutor took great exception to having a woman, and also it seemed like all the other people there had sort of been born with a camera in their hand, and I had been a photographer before, but I had no idea. So I literally picked up the camera. I met a woman in the canteen, Amanda Richardson, who is my co-director on Greenham. And I said, will you do the sound? I'll do the camera. Let's go to Greenham for the weekend. And I'm sure by Monday I will have figured this out. Famous last words. 7 months later, yeah, we had figured it out. We did work out how to use the gear, and many, many adventures later, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But the actual impulse was literally going and doing something in one's own image, working out how to use the gear and so on. And of course, that was the weekend where everybody held hands around the base. So, you know, once you'd experienced that, you know, we were not for turning. We were part of that movement rather than the other thing. And I didn't actually make it back to the camera department until Carry Greenham Home had finished. And of course, I had an incredible skill that none of the boys had, which is I'd been hand-holding a camera 24/7 for 7 months. And I got asked to do a lot of filming as a handheld camera woman. But it wasn't until 2 years later that I suddenly thought, this is ridiculous. Why aren't I telling people how to push the camera around rather than carrying it myself? So there you go. In a nutshell, I went for selfish reasons and ended up there for 7 months.
And did you live at camp that whole time?
We did. And in fact, the head of the film school at that time was a big kind of CND guy. And so he sort of, you know, tacitly or unofficially, officially, who knows, let us be there. But there was a condition, and the condition was that we had the camera gear behind locked doors. I mean, those were different times. Yeah, camera gear was extremely valuable and relatively rare, you know. And so what we did was, I actually had a Mini at the time. And so we figured that was a locked door, and we slept in the Mini until all the evictions came. Both Amanda and I slept in the Mini, you know, in this with a thing.
It's a Mini. A clue with the name of how comfortable you might have been, because it was a Mini.
Yeah, no. had terrible trouble with my knees for years afterwards, actually. And then when the evictions came, we actually lived like the other women in a bend. But by then, we'd sort of, we'd lost any sense of playing by the rules, and we didn't really care anymore. We slept on top of the camera.
I was going to ask you, actually, because you capture such amazing, the breadth of the movement, I think, is captured in your film so brilliantly. And I wondered how you do capture some very there's some very violent moments in there. The bailiffs, I mean, the Greenham women have mixed things to say and mixed experiences of the police and the military, but no one has anything nice to say about the bailiffs, about the women that we've interviewed. And I wondered if any of the in the military actions where we're seeing MOD police pulling women away, or we're seeing bailiffs pulling women off cars, are any of, how were they with you, and you being there with your camera and your co-director?
Well, I think that it's a really interesting question, and I'm going to answer it in a slightly roundabout way, but in that, so there were the bailiffs, and then there were the police, and the police came on more occasions than the bailiffs came. But when the bailiffs came, the police came with them. So there was a sort of a double thing, and then there were the people inside the base, looking out. So there was a slightly more complex sort of relationship with all these people, and some were more frightening than others, and some were more regular than others, and some were more known to us than others. But what was most interesting about our relationship with them was that, of course, we were very visible in the bright blue Mini, and we were very visible because, I spent all that time with the camera on my shoulder. And once we had much of the footage that we had and we wanted, and we were very ensconced by them in the camp, we used to actually go off as a decoy. So the police and the bailiffs and so on would follow us, and then the women would go over the fence in the other direction. So we actually did have quite a relationship with those guys, mainly one of abject frustration, but we wouldn't always do it, because otherwise then then they would work out. So we were a little bit cat and mouse, and the longer we were there, what is that terrible phrase? Anyway, the longer we were there, the less respect they paid, and the more likely we were.
Familiarity breeds contempt, something like that.
That's the one. Late on a Sunday, and so we were sort of in the line of fire. But the truth is that being witness is always more protected than being an activist. And so I think that although we got ourselves in some quite difficult situations, we were never sort of turned over the way that the women were who were not carrying cameras.
I'm just noticing that we've got a question in the chat from someone who's watching, Zara, and she says, if you don't mind me asking her a question for you, it's such an incredible movement, totally agree. Why do you think there hasn't been anything like it since?
Well, Zara, I don't know that I would agree that there hasn't been anything like it since. And in that, when I see some of the incredible actions of XR, I see them as, children and grandchildren of Greenham. Actually, there's probably, because it's such a mixed group, there's probably some of the Greenham women in that group. But I remember, in amongst all the, pink boats and this, that, and the other, was that incredible moment when all the women started breastfeeding outside number 10. I mean, I thought it was joyous. I thought it was funny. I thought it was witty. And I thought it had that same quality that Greenham had, of sort of, both that sort of the profound seriousness of the purpose, but the sort of the wit and the performative nature of some of the action. So I do think that's there. I think I thought a few years ago that Plain Stupid had a bit of the old Greenham spirit in it. I think that sort of, that sort of non-violent, direct action, you know, with a sort of, I don't want to call it just wit, but I think that that irony undermining the forces of power, you know, and saying, actually, it's not just about what you carry. It's not just about the uniform. It's not just about how tall you are. It's actually about what comes with you in terms of both community, in terms of how you're going to undermine the force of power, and also the collective. And I think that I would say that Greenham itself was in a tradition, and that coming out of it, there is a tradition. I do think that it was a bit forgotten. You know, I remember, I'm old period. I was going to say older than many, but I'm of an age, let's say, that we all approached the millennium thinking what was going to be counted in and what was going to be counted out. And I remember feeling around the year 2000 that Greenham had been counted out. And given how recent it was, and how important it was, you know, so I would say to Zara, it was incredible, and they tried to forget us, but we are not forgotten. And what's more, both wittingly and unwittingly, I think we sit in a bigger tradition.
I think that's really, yeah, I totally agree. And I quite often rail against the cultural robbery, because women inspire women, and if we take that out of the cultural dialogue, then women don't know the shoulders of the giants they're standing on, and that really frustrating. And you have to say, so if this was a movement of sometimes tens of thousands of people at a time protesting bloodlessly as well, you know, and to such a degree of success, where their aims were largely met, actually, in the end, their campaign. If it had been men, we would be teaching it in schools in every history syllabus, and so on and so on. So does feel unfair in that way. Carol has asked, what is your opinion of the female journalist attempting to broadcast? This is one of my favourite bits of the film. I love when she says, "I'm sorry I called you a tit." Anyway, she says, attempting to broadcast, I've been frustrated by the cartwheeling protester. I feel the camera maintained a very neutral stance, but I'm intrigued by your view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought she was preposterous. I also thought it was very, I also thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
And I think that it was an interesting moment because, you know, there is, there's opposition, and then there's the people who think that neutrality, you know, their neutrality is neutral. Yes. And actually it isn't, you know, and one of the reasons actually Amanda and I left the camp when we did to cut the film was it was the summer of the dreadful press. Yeah. I mean, they went after us like it was unbelievable. Yeah. And I remember actually saying to Amanda, I said, look, you know, this is the story. This is the story everybody sees, everybody hears, and everybody believes. And we have the record of a different story. Yeah. And we put together the film over that summer. We had so much material, and it was a real trauma to try and pull it into some sort of narrative. And I think that relationship with the press and showing the press standing between the women, you know, and the viewer, as it were not as neutral as all that. I mean, you know, that was Kate Adie, by the way. I mean, that was, you know, yeah. I mean, she's unrecognizable. I know, she's no schmuck. And I think it's about the view, you know. I mean, there were those guys who came back to find smelly lesbians, you know what I mean? It's like they were looking for the odor, you know, they came with it, you know, and those guys, you know, those guys were properly hostile, and those guys won the press battle, if you like. But there were other people, you know, who just couldn't, you know, they didn't have the imagination of what it was like to live in a community with whose aims you embraced. They couldn't understand what the women only thing actually meant at a political level and at an organizational level and and the ability to live in that community, however hard, for such a long period of time. You know, they couldn't understand that neutral wasn't enough. And so there's a sort of, you know, so in answer to the question, Carol, you know, I have a real problem with the press. I have a real problem with the media because their pretense at neutrality is not neutral. I would say about the camera, sometimes just letting people F it up for themselves is actually the best thing to do. And that sequence, and in a way, the soldiers with the lock on the fence, it, you know, are two film sequences. I mean, what do you need me to say? Do you need me to say anything? Or is it actually a metaphor for the whole? You know, bigger, 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 until the gate falls off. You know, you don't open the gate that way. And I think that I feel very similarly about that sequence. She did the work for us, you know, and she wasn't understanding the whole, even if she was right-minded. And that's not enough. You have to sometimes take a position on things.
Yeah, and you have to recognise sometimes that what you consider to be neutral is actually a position and it protects the status quo. And you've actually made a decision to either protect the status quo or change it. And neither of those positions are neutral, are they really? So, yeah, I think that's really interesting. We're running out of time and I'm very sad about it because you're fascinating and this is a really fantastic to talk to you. But I'd love to finish with one question I feel like comes out of that in a way, which is that a lot of the Greenham women that I know do feel like they've been really maligned. And I think they're right to feel it overall by the press and by sometimes by any records of them that are presented by academics, and they don't always feel that they come across fairly and all those things. They're not always happy with how they're represented, let's say. But they, to a woman, I've never had anyone be anything but full of praise for Carry Greenham Home. And I wondered why, just for your last question, I wondered if you'd share with us why you think, I mean, I know why I think it, why I think they feel that way, but why do you think that you succeeded to such a huge degree to capture the love of that movement?
Gosh, that's, you know, it's been so many years. I've been asked so many questions over the years and no one's ever asked me that. So first of all, congratulations to you.
I'll take that.
Exactly. You got to take everything that's coming your way. That's good. That's what I say. So, I think I think that at one level is probably related to what I said before. So the bar wasn't very high. They got such a thwacking from every which way that this was full of love, you know, and you know, we did consider, but halfway through, we considered ourselves Greenham women. Do you know what I mean? It's like we weren't pretending to be neutral. We were with it, we were for it, we were part of it. But I think that the reason that people felt represented was that the film didn't shy away from some of the messy stuff, the arguments about the money or the organization, you know, the sort of, you know, the squalor of the early morning coffee, blah, 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 blah. But actually, you know, they were collectively, I mean, obviously we didn't film everybody over the whole period of time, but they were heroic. They were right-minded. They did meet the moment and they did sort of withstand their own differences. And I think that complexity told with love means that you have been seen. Whereas if it was, you know, I've seen a couple of things about Greenham and it's sort of, you know, it's almost heraldic, you know, on the one hand. And then I saw all the stuff of the time, which is absolutely, you know, brutally ugly. And I think this was not in the middle, it was other, but it was other with them rather than other looking on. And I hope that's why. And if it isn't why, then then I don't know.
I think it is right. I totally agree with you. And I think you made something for them and of them. And they're everyone we've spoken to is always that all the questions are answered that we wanted in that film. Please watch it, is basically their attitude. That's all the women that I've spoken to, for sure. Thank you so much, Beeban. It's been really lovely to talk to you.
I'm thrilled that you're watching it all this time later. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm really apologetic for, I think I just lost my time zones or something.
No.
But I really thank you so much for inviting me.
You've been wonderful, and you're welcome to I'm going to sing a couple of the Greenham songs now. You're welcome to hop off. You're not duty bound to listen to those. But if you want to, obviously want to listen and sing along with us, you'd be really, really welcome. And I might try and get in touch with you myself and see if I can interview you for our archive and add you to my collection of Greenham women, because you clearly are one. It's wonderful to speak to you. Thank you so, so much. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend evening. So that was a really amazing experience. I'm very proud to share that with everybody here at POW. To kind of round off the festival weekend, I'm going to sing a couple of songs. Some of the songs, I'm going to sing 3 songs is what I'm going to do. The first one is a classic that you'll have seen in that film. It's either You Can't Kill the Spirit or She's Like a Mountain, depending who you talk to. And you can download the lyrics from the festival website. So please do sing along at home. This is my ukulele. I should be singing to you with my ukulele. The reason I've chosen this song, obviously, is actually it's beautiful. I think the lyrics are really beautiful in it, and it's not very long. But the other thing about it is that it comes up in when we interview the Greenham women, that lots of women have really, really diverse feelings about it. Some of them absolutely love it, and have very precious memories, particularly women that perhaps didn't live at the camp. And then some of the women who lived at the camp are like, oh my God, it goes on and on. So it divides the Greenham women in terms of how they remember it. But I think it is actually well worth a little sing along to, and it's got some great. It's great about makes you feel good about being a woman. Nobody can push back an ocean. It's gonna rise back up in waves, and nobody can stop the wind from blowing. Stop the mind from growing. Somebody may stop my voice from singing, but the song will live on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain, old and strong. She lives on and on, and nobody can stop a woman from feeling. She has to rise up like the sun. Somebody may change the words we're saying, but the truth will live on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain, old and strong. She lives on and on. But I feel like I've lived a personal dream there, because Beeban Kidron, Baroness of Angel, was singing along in between to the choruses, and I was thank you very much, taking another little gold star for that moment. So the next song I'm going to sing you is called The Ballad of Frida Geese. Now, this one is not in the Greenham Songbook. This is a bit cheeky of me. The Greenham Songbook is this amazing, massive zine that the Greenham women made to collate all the music and songs that got them through protests and campfire nights, and that they made up themselves a lot of the time, and is brilliant. But we actually had some other feminist artists looking at the archive and all the interviews of the Greenham women for a big project we did last summer, which you can find online, called Greenham Women Digital, where you actually get to explore a virtual reality version of the camp and find, it's like a treasure hunt, you find these different sound files. And one of the things we did was commission feminist artists to respond. And this was a response to a story that I absolutely love, where, because the women were breaking into the camp every day, a mother and daughter team put their heads together. There was the military were increasingly desperate to keep the women out. And one of the things they tried is they never could keep them out. Like how many razor wire fences and all the rest of it, they could never keep them out. So they ended up getting geese, guard geese, who were supposed to like honk and honk and honk if the women came. And of course, the women, it was a vegan camp. These women were kind of like way ahead of the time in terms of animal rights and things as well. And they were like, they've got geese locked up in there. That's wrong. We should free those geese. So they're in no way intimidated. So mother and daughter team, Becca Giffis and her mum Naomi, headed up a break-in where they it ended up with the young women distracting and getting themselves arrested so that the older women could spirit out the geese. So I'm going to sing a quick sound, the Ballad of Free the Geese. And the reason that thank you, Carol, in the chat. I appreciate you saying that because I'm very nervous. So it's nice to know you think I have a gorgeous voice. See if it stands the test of this song. But yeah, the other thing I called it Free the Geese because the women made up their own names when they were arrested quite often, and Frida People and things like that were quite common. Miss Anarchy, things like that were their court names. So I thought the Ballad of Free the Geese was a little homage to them as well. Don't look there, officer. You don't have to know what the women of Greenham do until we want you to. You armed yourself with geese. You kept them in a cage. You thought that'd be enough to keep us at bay. Don't show us where they are. Don't forget when we're enraged. We'll break down your fences and open up the gates. Don't look there, officer. You don't have to know what the women of Greenham do until we want you to. We didn't get the fruit. We didn't soak it in rum. We didn't cut the fence so that the other group could run. We didn't wrap the geese in a blanket for the wire. And we're not distracting you while they run for the other side. Don't look there, officer. You don't have to know what the women of Greenham do until we want you to. Don't look there, officer. You don't have to see. The women are laughing and letting the geese be free. Don't look there, officer. You don't have to see. The birds flying and resting where they please. Where they please. So there you go. That's the Ballad of Free the Geese. Thank you very much. I can't see anyone else who's out there, so I'm just pretending I'm playing an exclusive one-woman show to Beeban Kidron. It's really, it's working for me. I hope she's all right with it. I'm going to, before I sing the last song, I thought we'd finish. I thought we should finish by singing "Carry Greenham Home," and I want to thank Peggy Seeger, who's also in our archive and has been. We started a mutual aid society for the Greenham women because obviously there's been a lot of shielding and so on. So they've made their own events. It's been really great. And she's been singing for them and coming to playing gigs for them and things. And she's extendedly loaned us the songs that she wrote around Greenham for us to perform when we want to, which is so great. So I'm going to sing that. We're going to sing that together as a finish. Before I do that, I thought it'd be really nice to just read you one quote from one of the women we interviewed. If you listen to almost no other interview at all, I really recommend listening to Sue Say. Very interesting about race, how she got completely different sentences to all her Caucasian sisters, was treated very differently by police, but she's also very funny, natural raconteuse. And she says something really interesting about the nature of being a strong group of very strong-minded women, a big group of strong-minded women, and how that often means you don't always agree on everything, and how important it is to discuss things and find where your points of unity are. And I thought it was lovely, so I'll just read that to you, and then we'll sing Carry Greenham Home. What was important about me about Greenham was the fact that it was the best education you'll ever have, because you don't very often in this life get the opportunity to sit side by side with somebody very different to yourself. And I learned that all women are different, and that hearing somebody's opposing views to mine, they have every right to express it. And I need to hear it, I need to listen. And if she's wrong, in my view, I need to persuade her. And if I'm wrong, she needs to persuade me. We need to enlighten each other That's both of our responsibilities. And for me, that working together, that knowing we were all different, knowing that a woman would probably stand up and argue with me for half an hour over one tiny little thing because we don't agree, but she will sit here and link arms with me and make sure that we stop nuclear weapons. That's all I needed to hear. And I think for me, that's how Greenham women are everywhere. And Greenham was about sitting next to somebody with your arms linked to them, grounding yourself to stop disaster from happening. I didn't care whether this woman was an accountant or a lawyer or a solicitor or a nurse or a teacher. I didn't matter what colour she was or what country she was from or what religion she had. It was the fact that we were united here as women, and we were going to change the world, and we were going to stop oppression from happening. We were going to peacefully say no. It was about women linking arms with each other, sitting in the dirt, refusing to move, questioning the authority, making the police react, making them see and justify and acknowledge what they were doing. And I think the fact that we were a disorganized group of individuals, we weren't a united front, we were all doing things very differently. I think that was the beauty of it, because you can't fight something that comes at you in so many different ways. Okay. I want to thank again very much, POW, for having me. I want to thank very much the Duchess of Angel for being here with us. And I want to thank you all for being the awesome sisterhood that you are out there. Why don't we all join for a final song? Let's give it a bit of welly in your living rooms as we go for the wonderful Peggy Seeger's Carry Greenham Home, in homage to the wonderful Rebecca Kidron's Carry Greenham Home, in homage to the amazing, amazing Greenham women. Hand in hand the line extends all around the 9-mile fence. 30,000 women chant, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Singing voices rising high, weave a dove into the wire. In our hearts a blazing fire, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. No one asked us if we cared, if crews should be stationed here. Now we've got them running scared, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Here we sit and here we stand, here we claim the common land. Nuclear arms shall not command, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Singing voices sing again, to the children, to the men, from the channels to the glens, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yeah, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Not the nightmare, not the scream, just the loving human dream of peace, the ever-flowing stream, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Woman tiger, woman dove, help to save the world we love. Velvet fist in iron glove, bring the message home. Carry Greenham home, yes, nearer home and far away. Carry Greenham home. Yeah. So rocking out at the end then. Ray, thank you so, so much. You've all been amazing. Thank you so much for having us in sisterhood. Liberation, sisters. Good night.
Thank you to Rebecca and of course Beeban. I'm a bit out of breath because we were just dancing to Carry Greenham Home. And finishing with Peggy Seeger. What a treat. Oh, I'm emotional.
POW are thrilled to have screened this incredible, fantastic, informative film. Vital stuff. If you've got friends that needed to see it, it's going to be in our archive, so they need to come back and watch it. Ooh, this weekend's been big. Done a bit of crying, done a bit of dancing. This year, our festival has gone deep into topics surrounding power in protest in honour of and celebrating 40 years since Greenham Common. We're blown away by the courage, creativity and humour of the Greenham women. This remains a seminal work of British feminism on film, so thanks to Beeban for giving us the rights to screen it and joining us tonight. What an honour. Tell your friends to watch it. This is history that can't be forgotten. Now, I can reveal something really exciting that POW have got up our sleeve. Rebecca and her troupe of Greenham women are joining us for a Greenham Common experience at POW Cotton Museum Gardens for a real-life event on Sunday the 9th of May, all being well with the world. You'll be able to pre-book to attend tickets and then experience the different gates of Greenham Common in your bubbles of 6. We've been so excited to talk about this, so follow POW and join our mailing list to find out more. My goodness, can you imagine a real-life event? What a day it's been on POW today, day 3. It's been incredible. Thank you all for your communications and feedback. It really feels like you're here with us today. It feels like an actual festival today in the room. And you guys being with us has made it so real, and that feeling of what POW does normally, I think we've achieved that today. It feels like these wonderful people are with us and we're in a national lockdown and we've still done it. So thank you so much. We love and appreciate you all. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, what we're here to celebrate. And the best International Women's Day present we've been gifted is with the schools going back. Freedom. So happy Women's Day, mothers. You deserve all the rest. Don't rush to do anything. Just stop and breathe and have a bath and a cup of tea and watch all of the POW archive. Simple pleasures. You did it. You're incredible. We've got so many brilliant things being released throughout the day on our social media tomorrow, like big announcements. So stay tuned to @POW Thanet all day. And then we're back here at the same link tomorrow night for Canvas for Equality to close our International Women's Day Festival. C4E, Canvas for Equality, are a collective of young women of mixed ethnicities and sexualities from Thanet and Canterbury, raising awareness about inequalities from an intersectional perspective. 19-year-olds that are like way more on it than I'm now. They're like, we've got a lot to learn from these young'uns. So tune in for that tomorrow at 7. We're really proud that they're going to close our festival. Make sure you get out in the day and see the artwork that we've got in the shops all over Thanet. There's some incredible stuff to see. And if you enjoyed the weekend, please do consider a donation using the click link above and help POW Thanet keep curating amazing events like this. And thanks to everyone who filled out that POW evaluation form. We're very grateful for that too. So all that's left to say is happy International Women's Day. It's been a dream of a day. The sun has set. Thank you to the team here at Faith and Strangers, the Power Women of POW for your hard work, and to you for watching and being part of Power of Women 2021. Thank you and good night.